the March 5th update, the Prophecy Dungeon received a loot refresh with 3 new weapons, heavy air quotes on new, and it even updated 3 of our older ones, given them new elements and a new perk pool. So with this video, I wanted to go over all the brand new roles and answer the question, should you be farming Prophecy again? I'll have timestamps if you would like to skip to a certain weapon, and as always, if you enjoy, a like and a sub goes a long way and is greatly appreciated. But without further ado, let's jump right into it. First things first, I think we should talk about the new origin trait, Crossing Over. This weapon has increased range and handling for the top half of the magazine, while rounds fired from the bottom half of the magazine deal increased damage. I don't know the exact stats on this quite yet because I'm recording this as soon as the update launches, but if you test this out, be sure to drop a comment and I will try to pin it as fast as possible. On paper, this origin trait already seems like it's going to be very strong, if not one of the best origin traits in the entire game. There are not many origin traits that straight up give you increased damage, and if this can stack with other damage buffs in the game, this could be very, very strong. And even with the increases to range and handling on the top half, it will make it even easier to use, and I can foresee this origin trait being extremely strong in both PvE and PvP. But alright, let's start off with the Adjudicator. This is going to be a 600 round per minute precision frame SMG. Now, I do apologize that there isn't a picture right here. I currently have to use D2 Gunsmith because D2 Foundry isn't updated quite yet. But if we take a look at the perks on this SMG, on our first column, we do have Dynamic Sway Reduction, Feed and Frenzy, Perpetual Motion, Rangefinder, Subsistence, Threat Detector. And in the second column, we have Fragile Focus, Frenzy, Kinetic Tremors, Onslaught, Rampage, and Target Lock. Now, these are some pretty good perks for both PvE and PvP. We're going to start off talking about PvE to begin with. Obviously, things like Feed and Frenzy is very good to get your reload speed up. Subsistence is very nice, so you never have to reload. But what surprised me the most is the fact that this weapon can come with Onslaught. Onslaught, if you don't know, when you get a kill, you'll get that increased fire rate. This is going to be very, very strong. Now you're going to be able to turn that 600 round per minute SMG into something even faster than, say, something like a 900. And remember, this is kinetic, so you are inherently doing more damage than elemental primary. So just with Subsistence and Onslaught alone, this thing is going to absolutely slay out with ads, and it's something I would highly recommend farming. Now, there are some other good perks, things like Kinetic Tremors. This is very good for things like GMs, but in most cases, you aren't going to be really using an SMG for that. So I don't know if I would recommend that. Frenzy is always a decent perk as well, kind of like Rampage. But I think the go-to shine here is for sure Subsistence with Onslaught. You're never going to have to reload. You're going to get crazy fire rate, and you can just slay through ads. Now, unfortunately, this won't play into the origin trait of getting more damage, but if you ever get to that lower part of the magazine and you keep getting kills, that damage will basically be procced forever until you reach that other half, and then it could turn into this fun game of just trying to keep that damage buff up as long as possible. And then, obviously, if you don't have it, you still get that increased range handling, which is nice to hit enemies from further away. So for the go-to PvE role, it's definitely Subsistence and Onslaught. I would definitely go for a mag increase perk. If you take Extended Mag, it doesn't increase it by a lot, so I would just go with something like Tac Mag just to get some extra stats, a little extra magazine, and then something to increase your handling is what I would go for. With Arrowhead Break, you can get up to 31 handling, and you can have max recoil direction. Just makes the gun a lot easier to use, and then you can go something like a Range Masterwork, and this will be very, very solid for a PvE ad clear machine. Now for PvP, this is an SMG, so I'm sure all the sweats out there are definitely going to give this one a try. This does have some pretty good PvP perks with things like Dynamic Sway Reduction, Perpetual Motion, Rangefinder is also very good. Threat Detector is not the worst since this is an SMG. Things like Fragile Focus isn't the worst, and then you also have things like Target Lock. Now, Target Lock did end up getting a nerf on SMGs. It could potentially still be very strong for this, but we'll just have to wait and see when all that testing is done. Now, if you are going to go for a PvP role, pretty much all the perks I said combined together will do very well. Dynamic Sway, Fragile Focus is nice. You get stability, accuracy, range. Obviously, Target Lock as well. You get that increased damage. You get to the bottom half of the magazine, you're also getting increased damage with the origin trait, so that can stack together and you can slay out with it. You could also go with something like Rangefinder, Target Lock. That's also a very solid role. It's up to you if you want that little extra range bump or that zoom, and then Dynamic Sway as well if you just want that extra accuracy. Now, for the most part, if you're playing on PC, you are going to go and just increase your range as much as you possibly can. But if you want to go for more stability, that is also something you can do, especially if you're playing on controller. Now, with all the max range, you can get up to 91 range with this. And remember, you do have the origin trait as well, so I'd imagine this probably bumps it up to 100. And then you can also play into the other perks we went through. So this could potentially be a very solid SMG and something that all the sweaty players want to look out for and definitely go far. But all right, let's move on to the Relentless Pulse Rifle. This is returning as a strand weapon. This is going to be a 340 round per minute high impact pulse rifle. This is going to be something like your messenger, and I remember using this weapon a lot back in the day when it was originally released. But let's take a look at its perks. Starting off, we have Keep Away, Outlaw, Rapid Hit, Slice, Snapshot Sights, and Slotways. And then the second column, we have Desperado, Frenzy, Hatchling, Head Seeker, Moving Target, and Zen Moment. Now, like always, let's start off talking about PvE. And when it comes to elemental primaries in PvE. Since this does do strand, it is inherently doing less damage, something like kinetic, like we just talked about the Adjudicator. So I would never recommend trying to use this as an ad clear weapon, and I would try to just play into the verb. This is going to be a theme with some other weapons that we'll get into later as well. And since this is strand, the only real thing you can play into for a damage perk wise is hatchling. Now, obviously, there are a bunch of good perks on here. We have things like Outlaw, which is very good. Rapid Hit's very good. Slice is very good to play in those verbs. And then we also have things like Desperado, which can be pretty good. Frenzy's good. Hatchling, we already said. All those will be very good perks. Problem is like I said, if you take something like Frenzy, you will get that increased damage. But you might as well just take a kinetic pulse rifle, since that inherently is going to do more damage anyway, and just run Frenzy on that. So that's why it's hard to recommend any damage-based perk on any of these weapons, because you're never really going to use them for ad clear, and you're always going to play into their elemental gimmick. So like we said, hatchling, in my opinion, is going to be the best perk in the second column. If you do need a hatchling weapon, there are plenty out there, so I don't know if this is something you want to go for specifically. And since it is a pulse rifle, you are going to be firing 3 shots, so there is a little timing there where you could potentially miss a headshot. So having this something like a scout rifle will be a lot better. But if you do want to run this, things like Outlaw could be pretty good, just get some reload speed up. Rapid Hit also is very good. Rapid Hit's probably going to be your best option right here, so you can stack it up with the pulse rifle. But even if you want to go with Slice, have a Slice hatchling weapon, this could also be pretty good. Obviously, Slice works better on Hunters and even Titans if they have the Rally Barricades, so you can use the class ability a lot more often. I don't really think you're going to be using this a lot for PvE, and if I had to go with a specific role, it would just be Rapid Hit hatchling, just so I could have something to play into that elemental perk. But again, I would not recommend this for PvE. But now for PvP, on the other hand, this thing has some crazy perks. Obviously, Keep Away is a very, very strong perk. Rapid Hit's also very good for PvP. Snapshot's not the worst, and Slot Waste is also pretty good. And then the second column, Desperado is extremely good. Headseeker is very strong. Moving Target and Zen Moment, all these are extremely strong perks. This weapon for me is just streaming consistency inside of PvP. It does have things like Desperado, but I don't think that's what you play into. You have things like Keep Away, which is again one of the strongest perks of PvP in my opinion. It's going to give you increased range, accuracy, and reload speed for being far away. And since this is a high impact, you're going to be far away with this weapon anyway. But then you can also pair that with things like Zen Moment to increase that stability even more. If you want to pair with Headseeker, you can, just to increase that headshot damage, moving target just for even more, because this is very, very strong for all that. And then again, if you want to go for a Slay Out Machine, Rapid Hit, Desperado is also very, very good. But if it was me and I had to build a perfect role for myself, it would definitely be Keep Away and Headseeker. You're going to get a ton of benefits. It's going to be even easier to land your kills with Headseeker if you do miss a headshot from time to time. And with the new PvP changes and health changes, Headseeker could potentially be even stronger now. I would then opt in to take Ricochet rounds to increase the range and stability of this. This is just nice to make the gun a whole lot easier to shoot. And then these other barrel perks, it's kind of up to you. I always like to go with Arrow Hit just to increase the handling and recoil direction. But obviously things like Corkscrew Rifling could be good to give even more range and handling. It's kind of just up to you, whatever you get on your roll. But inherently, more range is always better, and the more stability if you're on a controller is always better. But this is going to be a very solid, consistent pulse rifle for PvP. If you don't have something like the Messenger, I would definitely recommend Farm for this. But now we have the Prosecutor. This is going to be a 450 round per minute precision frame arc auto rifle. And then for perks in the first column, we're going to have Discord, Dragonfly, Gut Shot Straight, Keep Away, Rewind Rounds, and Zen Moment. Then the second column, Cascade Point, Frenzy, Golden Tricorn, Tap the Trigger, Target Lock, and Volt Shot. Now for PvE, this is a 450 round per minute auto rifle, so it's not going to be the best thing you can use. But if you are building it for PvE, again, kind of just like our last weapon, you want to play into its elemental perk, because kinetic primaries are just going to inherently do damage to enemies, and that'll just be better for ad clear. So since it is arc, we do have Volt Shot. Volt Shot's one of the best perks in the game. This also does have things like Golden Tricorn for a damage increase, which could be good because a lot of arc based builds have very strong grenades, so you can proc this a lot. And then also Frenzy is very good. You can even kind of make Cascade Point work if you want to have like a little fun gimmicky build, but let's be honest, it's never really going to be a thing. Dragonfly is also good in the first column, and then that's pretty much it. You do have Rewind Rounds, which could potentially play into its origin trait, which could be pretty fun, but overall I don't really think that's going to be doing too much, and you're never really going to be using a primary weapon for DPS anyway. But maybe something like a GM, Rewind Rounds, Target Lock with its origin trait potentially be pretty good. That's a little copium, but you know, I can see just shooting this on a champion if you don't have any other ammo. It could be very strong. But if you don't want to go a single target route, you can go with something like Volt Shot, Dragonfly. I have this roll in my Nations of Beast. It is very, very strong. You just have some of the most insane ad clear perks combined together. But again, this is only 450 rounds per minute, so you're not going to be getting those easy headshots to proc Dragonfly, and you're never really going to be using this too much in PvE in general. These are pretty much the only 2 perks you can go forward for PvE. Bolt Shot, Dragonfly, just for an ad clear weapon. There are other guns that do it better, and rewind rounds target lock for a GM weapon, especially pairing with this origin trait, it can be pretty fun. Now for PvP, if auto rifles are your thing, this does have some pretty solid perks. You have things like Keep Away, which again we've already went over, is pretty much one of the best perks in the game in my opinion. Zen Moment's also very good. You can even maybe do some fun things with Gut Shot Straight. You also have things like Golden Tricorn, which I know you can gimmicky things with. Tap the trigger for a consistency weapon, target lock as well, just your consistency. And this does have a fun perk combination of Discord and Cascade Point. If you get a kill with another weapon, swap over to this. You could potentially just slay out with these 2 perks combined together, constantly just refilling the magazine, constantly get that increased fire rate. It could be very, very fun. Now I don't know if this is going to be practical, but I imagine if you want a fun weapon, this is definitely one I would look out for. Now, Keep Away is very, very strong for a consistency perk. Keep Away, tap the trigger. You're going to be firing this thing extremely precise. So you're going to have that extra range, which is very, very good. Keep Away, target lock, so you can potentially get a kill with 1 less bullet. This could be very, very good as well. And then even Zen Moment, target lock, and Zen Moment, tap the trigger. All these are going to be very, very good just to make your weapon shoot extremely accurate. Since it is auto rifle, you want to try to get that up as much as possible. For me personally, for PvP, I would definitely go with Keep Away and target lock. This again is going to make an extremely consistent weapon. You don't really have to worry about anything other than just being at a range. You're going to be doing that in the first place anyway. Again, ricochet rounds is always nice. You do have 69 recoil direction, so I would definitely recommend trying to get your recoil direction up as much as possible with something like Arrowhead Break. But again, if you want to take something else, you absolutely can. And maybe something like a range masterwork. Even pop on Corkscrew Rifling on there, just get even more range stability, and you're going to have a very solid PvP auto rifle if you do like using auto rifles in PvP. Now let's move on to Judgment. This is going to be the first weapon that was in the loot pool. They kept it in there, but they did end up changing the element on it. It is now Stasis, but this is going to be a 140 round per minute adaptive frame hand cannon, so a very solid archetype for both PvE and PvP. And if we take a look at his perks in his first column, we do have Demolitionist, Encore, Enlightened Action, Headstone, Moving Target, and Slot Shot, alongside Adrenaline Junkie, the Storm, Multi-Kill Clip, Opening Shot, Time Payload, and Warple Weapon. Now starting off with PvE, you can already see this thing has some very, very solid perks. Demolitionist is very strong for grenade-based builds. Enlightened Action is very good for getting your reload speed up. Headstone is going to be very strong for actually playing into the element of the weapon. And again, like we already mentioned, kinetic weapons do more damage to element of the weapon, so you want to play into the element pretty much 9 times out of 10. So Headstone is good, and it's in the first column, which is pretty unique. But then in the second column, you do have things like Adrenaline Junkie for a damage increase, Multi-Kill Clip, Time Payload, and I guess you could even take Warple as well, but let's be honest, you're never really going to be using that on a primary weapon too much. So you have some pretty solid damage perks in the second column. Now, honestly, I'm really upset because Demolitionist has always been in the first column on Judgment. Since they announced they were changing this to Stasis, I was really hoping they were going to put Headstone in the second column so you could have a demo Headstone hand cannon. I've been waiting for this ever since Stasis got released, honestly, and we still don't have it. The one chance we did have to get it, it is not here. But if we do take a look at the rolls, we do have Demo Adrenaline Junkie. Obviously, this is going to play heavily into your grenade. You get your increased damage. You're also going to get your increased cooldown rate. But again, if you're using a hand cannon for ad clear, you might as well make it kinetic since it does do increased damage. So I really wouldn't recommend this. You also have things like Enlightened Action, Multi-Kill Clip to increase your reload speed, so you can proc that extra damage. But again, same thing applies just like with Adrenaline Junkie. But if you do want to play into the element of the weapon, you do have things like Headstone, and if you want to pair this with something like Adrenaline Junkie to get your increased damage, you absolutely can. And Adrenaline Junkie should proc off Headstone kills as well, so you can have pretty much max stacks of this at all time. Headstone, Multi-Kill Clip, I guess could be good, but you're not going to be getting that many reload bonuses with the setup. And then even Headstone, Time Payload, if this doesn't actually mess with the Headstone proc itself, you could potentially have a very, very consistent, very high damage primary weapon that can actually play into the element of it, and this could be very, very good. But this is all just going to depend on if Time Payload won't mess with Headstone, but I imagine it probably will if the Time Payload is the thing getting the kill. So in this case, I would pretty much always just go with Headstone Adrenaline Junkie, since the interaction of Headstone kills proccing Adrenaline Junkie should work, and that means you're just going to always have this max stacks. Just as a final verdict though, I honestly would not recommend this for PvE. It's not bad if you do need a Headstone weapon, but I would just go with something like Iasuna, or even get something like an Undead Tempest with Demo Headstone. It's not terrible, and again, if this was still kinetic, things like Demo Time Payload would be very, very strong, but it is Stasis now, and I can't really recommend that, because if you do have a previous Judgment that's kinetic, I would pretty much just always recommend you that one. But now for PvP, it does have things like Encore, which is very strong for slaying out. Enlightened Access is not terrible. Moving Target, Slot Shot, all these are very, very good. Eye of the Storm, Opening Shot, even Time Payload, all these are extremely solid perks. And if you need a 140 hand cannon, this is definitely one I would look out for. Now, if you're going for a pure Slayer roll, Encore multi-kill clip, you're going to get so many stats, and you'll also get that increased damage. You can also, again, play into the Orchestrate with this as well. You're going to have a very stat-heavy hand cannon that can just absolutely slay out. But if you want to go for more consistency, you do have things like Moving Target, Eye of the Storm. This is going to increase your accuracy by a lot. It will help you win gunfights a lot more. Slot Shot's also very good for getting that increased range as well. You can also pair that with something like Opening Shot. Slot Shot, Opening Shot is always been one of the best combinations in the game. You slot, you just get that insane first shot, just so you can always consistently hit that first shot in a gunfight. And even something like Time Payload's also pretty good if you're just trying to cause flinch on an opponent. So Moving Target, Time Payload, I think could also be a very, very strong option. Now, this is going to be competing with something like Eye of Sooner or Allstringer because it is in that first slot. So if you have a decent one of those, I don't know if I would recommend this, but for me personally, I would definitely go with the Slot Shot, Opening Shot roll just to make that first shot as consistent as humanly possible. But if you do want to go with the Moving Target, Eye of the Storm, you can absolutely do that as well. And then for the magazine and sight, this is pretty much up to you, but Accurized rounds obviously is always nice for getting increased range. You can take something like True Sight just to bump your stats up a lot. Go with something like a Range Masterwork, and you're basically just trying to get this range up as much as possible. But again, you're competing with some of the best hand cannons in the game, something like Rose, Allstringer. I don't know if you're really going to use this for PvP, and for PvE, like I was saying, it doesn't have Headstone in that right column, so it kind of just messes up what this weapon could have been, and I think there are better options out there for both PvE and PvP. Now let's move on to Sudden Death. This is going to be a 55 round per minute aggressive frame shotgun. They did change this to Void, and then in the first column, we are going to have Elemental Capacitor, Threat Detector, Discord, Envious Assassin, Slot Shot, and Repulsor Brace. In the second column, we're going to have Barrel Constrictor, Cascade Point, Stabilize Rounds, 1-2 Punch, Opening Shot, and Trench Barrel. So starting off for PvE, things like Threat Detector is very nice because again, you're pretty much going to have this proc pretty much all the time since this is a shotgun. Something like Discord, I guess, could potentially be pretty fun if you're trying to play into like an unlimited special ammo thing. That's probably going to be more viable for PvP now with the changes than PvE, but there are some little fun gimmicky builds you can do with that. Envious Assassin's obviously very strong, one of the best perks of the game. It did get a nerf, but I imagine it's still going to be probably one of the best perks. This is just going to increase your magazine by a lot. Slot Shot's also not even that bad in PvE. You do have things like Repulsor Brace, which can play into perks like the Stabilizing Round, so you can just have a shotgun to give you an overshow, which could be pretty good. Cascade Point's not bad since this is going to be a high impact. I can see something like Cascade Point and Envious Assassin being very strong paired together. You can just swap to it. You're going to have a very fast fire rate that does a ton of damage. And then you also have things like your 1-2 Punch and Trench Barrel, which are pretty much just the staple shotgun perks in PvE. If the shotgun has it, it's probably going to be a good shotgun. 1-2 Punch obviously for your melee, and then Trench Barrel obviously just for increase your damage for the shotgun. Now, if I'm being honest, there already are a ton of shotguns out there with Trench Barrel and 1-2 Punch, and you probably already have one of those shotguns saved up already. So I don't even know if I would recommend trying to get one of these to roll on this shotgun. If you don't have a shotgun with these two perks, obviously look out for these because they're both strong for what they do. I would try to go into the more fun gimmick roll. Like I was saying with Cascade Point and Envious Assassin, you're going to be able to buff the magazine up a lot, and then you could just spray the whole magazine down, and it could do some insane damage. If you do pair this with the Origin Trait, obviously when you get to that bottom half, you're going to be able to do even more damage, and I potentially think this could be very, very fun. I don't think this is going to be groundbreaking. I don't think it's going to change the meta, like, probably at all, but it does have potential in my eyes, and I think it's something I would definitely look out for. But again, if you want to go with something like Threat Detector, Trench Barrel, Threat Detector, 1-2 Punch, extremely consistent, very great options, but I would highly recommend the Envious Assassin Cascade Point roll. Pair that with the Assault Mag to increase that rounds per minute up as well. You could definitely be cooking with something here, and it could be very, very good and very, very fun. Now for PvP, Elemental Capacitor is very good, especially if you are playing an Arc subclass. You get 50 increased handling. Threat Detector is also very, very good. Slot Shot is also a great option as well. The Prosecutor got a buff, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be very strong now, so that's also nice to have this on here. And then you also have the King of Perks, Opening Shot. It is very, very strong. Again, pairing Opening Shot and Slot Shot together, the first shot of this weapon is going to do some absurd range, and you're just going to be able to get those one-hit kills from far away. But if you don't want to go for the consistency roll, you can also go with things like Threat Detector and Barrel Constrictor. Again, this could be very, very strong. You're just in there proccing all the Threat Detector benefits. Barrel Constrictor's procced it. You're going to be able just to slay out with this. Elemental Capacitor, Opening Shot, all these could be very, very strong paired together. Because again, if you do pair this to Arc, you are getting that 50 handling, and this is a high impact frame shotgun, so You shouldn't be having this much handling on this. It is ridiculous. But you could almost argue that this is somewhat worse now, because before, this weapon used to be arc, and if you were playing an arc subclass, you could proc amplified off of it. And since it's void now, it doesn't have that unique interaction anymore, so it is nerfed a little bit. So if you have the older version, I would definitely just still recommend using that. But in my opinion, I would definitely go for slash shot opening shot, just for the most pure consistency you can. You're not locked into a subclass either. And I do want to give a notable mention to Discord, since they did make the ammo changes in PvP. If you get a kill with another weapon, this just means now you're going to have infinite ammo, so you can actually use shotgun, Discord, Bell Constrictor. You could slay out with that. So that's something I would also keep an eye out for. But for me personally, slash shot opening shot, obviously trying to go with as much range as possible, and then corkscrew rifling just to get some little extra range, and you're going to get that handling buff. And then I'll probably go for a range masterwork. This is going to be a very solid shotgun for PvP. If you already have a good PvP shotgun, I don't foresee this being the best in slot over some other things. But if you don't have a solid one, this is definitely one I'll keep an eye out for. And again, watch out for that envious assassin cascade point roll for PvP. Now finally, we have the darkest before. This is a 540 round per minute rapid fire frame pulse rifle. They did change this to solar, and in the first column we have attrition orbs, elemental capacitor, hill clip, deconstruct, subsistence, and wellspring, alongside head seeker, focus fury, incandescent, kill clip, one for all, and surplus. So right off the bat with PvE, in this first column we have things like kill clip, which did get buffed. This now will apply a ×2 cure, which is very good. You have subsistence, just so you don't really have to reload the gun, and again, this could heavily play into the crossing over origin trait. You also have wellspring, which could potentially be very good as well if you are trying to get your abilities back. Then the second column, things like incandescent is probably going to be your go-to. Again, this is a solar primary. You're trying to play into its elemental perk, because a kinetic primary will just damage, be better for ad clear. But with incandescent, it will make this weapon stronger for ad clear. But you also have things like kill clip. Again, it's a damage increase, but I don't know if I would recommend it, since you run kill clip on a kinetic rapid fire frame. And then one for all is also not terrible for something like a GM. There is a solar weapon boost in a GM. This continues to be very good as well. Now for me personally, for PvE, I would 100% recommend hill clip and incandescent. Hill clip got a buff. Again, like I said, it now applies a ×2 cure, which is very good. And since you are playing into incandescent, you're probably going to be on a solar subclass, which means you can play into cure, proc things like Emperor Benevolence, since hill clip does apply to your teammates. This synergy combined together is very strong, and it can play heavily into your subclass. But obviously you are locked to solar. But if you are using a elemental primary, 9 times out of 10 you are going to be using a subclass based around. But if this isn't your cup of tea, you do have things like wellspring, one for all, just to get that increased damage, get your cooldowns back. That's very good. Subsistence, one for all, is also not terrible. But again, I would 100% recommend hill clip incandescent. Get your reload speed up as much as possible, so you can always proc hill clip as much as possible, and you will have a very solid weapon. And if you don't have a good incandescent or hill clip weapon, this is one I would highly recommend farming for PvE. And it's something I'm personally even going to be on the lookout for. And now for PvP, you do have elemental capacitor, again, to give you those insane stats based on whatever your subclass is. Hill clip would potentially also be pretty good now, since it does apply ×2 cure. And wellspring, it's not like the most sought after perk, but with the changes to PvP, you could potentially get your abilities back a lot faster with wellspring. But these are pretty much your only main perks in this first column. But in the second column, we do have things like head seeker, which is very good on pulse rifles, kill clip if you want to go for a slay out roll, and even something like surplus could also be very good. If you do pair elemental capacitor and surplus together, you're going to have just an insane stat heavy base weapon, which can be very fun. You also have things like kill clip and kill clip for a pretty slay out roll. You get a kill, you're going to get more damage. You're also going to get more health, which is very good. And then you even have something like wellspring and surplus gives you more stats based on your abilities you have, and wellspring gives you more abilities. That could also be a very good combination paired together. A lot of this is just very fun gimmicky rolls that you can kind of put together with this weapon for PvP. I think other rapid fire frames are going to be better, but if you want a fun weapon with something like kill clip, this could potentially be your best and only go-to option. And I imagine on something like a rapid fire frame, this could 100% slay out. But all right, that is the refresh prophecy weapons. I really hope y'all enjoyed. If you sat through all this and listened to all my yapping, definitely be sure to comment something like trials down below, since these used to be trials weapons. And also obviously let me know what your most sought after weapon is going to be. Mine is 100% the Adjudicator. This thing is going to be very strong for both PvE and PvP. I'm very excited to test that onslaught on it, and I might even make a dedicated video if I do get that weapon to drop. If you guys like to see that, just be sure to let me know. Anyways, though, I wish you all the best of luck on farming for the weapons you want. I really appreciate you watching, and I hope you all have a great day. Peace.